Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, it's stock up, stock down, and I think there's going to be a lot of stock ups as the Eagles are 3-0. This is Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcoming Eagles fans to a Tuesday edition of the show. Today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. I'm Louie DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. Gino, it's stock up, stock down, and I think there's going to be a lot of stock ups. The Eagles are 3-0 for the first time since 2016. They are one of only 2 undefeated teams left. The Miami Dolphins are the other team after the New York Giants lost last night. And by the way, speaking of that game, you look at the Cowboys, they won and they're 2-1 with Cooper Rush. But I think in the NFC East and maybe the entire NFC with the way these teams are playing, it's the Eagles right now and everybody else. So I think there's going to be a lot of positives on the show.
The only thing stopping the Philadelphia Eagles right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. If you watch that Monday Night Football game, man, I said the NFC Beast the other day. Boy, do I regret making that
just
statement.
The Eagles. Maybe the NFC East is exactly the same except for us.
I was way too quick on the trigger to say that because if you look at the Cowboys, they're decimated right now on the offensive line with, moving parts. They had a rotational guard situation with Jason Peters in and out of the lineup.
Guard by
committee, and they just couldn't get it going with Cooper Rush going against the Giants defense, which isn't that formidable. The Giants on offense, their offensive line looks broken. We saw what happened last week with the Eagles taking on an offensive line that was undermanned going against that 4-man pass rush. It's the Eagles and everybody else in the NFC East right now.
Yeah, really in the entire NFL, Gino, if you look at it. I mean, the Buffalo Bills are the only team I think that can rival what the Eagles are doing right now. And even they
not with the injuries they got.
Right, and they're super beat up. You look at it across the NFL. The Rams are 2-1, but they don't look the same. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers can't produce on offense. The Packers are still very limited without Davante Adams. I mean, you look in the AFC, the Chargers are immensely beat up. They're losing every core piece that they have. The Chiefs don't look the same. Pretty much everybody. The Eagles are on top of the NFL right now, and there's a lot of reasons for that. This entire roster looks like it has no weaknesses outside of special teams, but the 2 main units looks like there's nothing wrong with this team. But, Gino, the biggest thing, again, is we said it on the show the other day, Jalen Hurts' stock is rising each and every week. Right now, would you say that maybe only Lamar Jackson has a better or equal pitch to win MVP?
Lamar Jackson has accounted for 4 touchdowns in each of his first 3 games. If I'm not mistaken, he's absolutely on another realm of existence.
It's him and Jalen, though, right now, man. I would say are the 2 guys that would get the votes if the season ended today.
I think we have to put Tua close to that conversation, a little probably in tier 2 to them, but what he has been able to do with that offense in Miami so far and to beat Buffalo, coming back into that game the way that he did, I think you have to give him the praise and say that maybe drafting an Alabama quarterback might be the way to go in the National Football League, especially one that played on a national championship roster. That might be something you want to continue to do. And Jalen Hurts, it's clear that he has been a leader, not just at Alabama, not just at Oklahoma, including Philadelphia. For the first time in his career, he has a play caller in back-to-back years that did not change. He had a full other offseason to get involved with these guys in a way that has created the connections that you're seeing on Sundays. The relationship he has with A.J. Brown, the relationship that he had with DeVonta Smith and is continuing to build, the trust he's building with Dallas Goedert and Quez Watkins, the trust he has in the offensive line. That's a great leader, understanding his scenario and then stepping back and saying, now I have to step up my play. And he has done it in every measure.
Yeah.
Completion percentage, touchdowns, the lack of interceptions that he is throwing, his ability to close out games, his ability to do 2-minute drill, his ability to start off a game hot. He has done it all in multiple different ways. Now, the last thing is just scoring in the second half, really.
That's really the last big thing. Yeah.
Besides that,
I think 27th right now in points per game in the second half, Gino, but they're number 1 in the first half. And you talked about everything that he's doing as a passer while still maintaining being, outside of Lamar Jackson, the best rushing quarterback in the entire NFL. He's setting new NFL firsts. He's the first player to ever have at least 900 passing yards and 150 rushing yards in his first 3 games of the season. He's also the first player ever through 3 games to average 300 passing yards and 50 rushing yards a game. Gino, he also has the most total yards, by the way, for an Eagles quarterback the first 3 games in franchise history. Maybe recreate that Randall Cunningham Ultimate Weapon Sports Illustrated with Jalen, because he is doing things through the ground and on the ground and through the air, actually, I should say, that, we saw with Cunningham, but also Michael Vick in 2010. It was very similar, where here was an elite scrambling quarterback that finally, he took years and years, but he finally put it all together in the pocket as a passer. And you saw him become that ultimate weapon. With these kind of weapons, too, around him, it broke the NFL. Unfortunately, because of age and injuries, that only lasted for a year. But, this could be Jalen Hurts, and this entire offense could be that 2010 version, only for the long haul, which is scary to think about.
I think your ideal scenario would be the consistency of Donovan McNabb. Yes. With the flair of Michael Vick.
Right, because McNabb wasn't producing these kind of rushing numbers, though. You're right. It's like a combined of the two, a combination.
Yeah, but when you look at the measures, and I think Ruben Frank from NBC Sports tweeted this out, of all the statistical measures that Jalen has surpassed in his first few games and comparing them to other quarterbacks, it's Donovan has like every single record for the longevity of them. Yes. I think in the first 3 games, like you said, Donovan was able to do it over like 11 or 12 games in his career. So he has to get to that level still, but consistency is what we had preached. But Michael Vick and what he was able to do with that 2010 team is exactly what we are seeing right now, in my opinion.
Where defense is just throwing their hands up in the air. They don't know how to defend this. That's what it feels like right now, where they look unstoppable.
The play to DeVonta Smith, even though it wasn't similar to the Deshaun Jackson play against Washington, it reminded me of that, where it's like, we are just imposing our will against defenses. Our quarterback can make all the throws that we are asking him to make.
Didn't you say he had, on Twitter the other day, didn't you say he had 3 of the most improbable passes on Sunday in Washington?
According to Next Gen Stats, he had the number 2, the number 6, and the number 11 most improbable completions in week 3 alone. And he also, for the second consecutive week, Lou, had the longest completed air distance pass in the NFL.
He's checking every box, man.
Every box, brother. I mean, what did we ask him to do? Throw the long ball, not turn the ball over, hit your wide receivers and trust them and make throws that maybe you wouldn't have made as a rookie. Well, man, it's clear and obvious that Jalen Hurts has evolved into this player because he trusts himself, the coaching staff trust him, the players trust him. You see him every game just like a robot until the lights go off, until it hits 60, and then you see him just, I love these clips of him coming off the field and just expressing how happy he is, because that's what you want. You want a leader that when it's game time, but we're going to celebrate our successes. And at the same time, every time he says in those post-game meetings, we haven't hit the standard yet, we've left meat on the bone. That's exactly the message you want to continue to preach, man. It's a great mindset,
but he's also being a little modest because they do look unstoppable, and him especially hurts.
But you want to keep pushing the envelope.
Of course. Yes, you want him to keep that mindset, but he certainly is being modest, because I thought those were the best back-to-back quarterback performance that we've seen since the Super Bowl year in 2017. They're winning because of his arm, Gino. He's attempting over 30 passes every game, and the efficiency is staying the same at a high level. Football Outsiders right now have Hurts as the 3rd most efficient passer in the league per DVOA. He's first in 20-plus yard plays this year. He's first in 10-plus yard plays. He's first in yards per attempt, first in yards per completion, second in overall passing yards, second in first downs per attempt, fifth overall in rating. Again, him and Lamar Jackson right now, I think, are the MVP favorites. Hurts is literally, this was the best case scenario. It's only 3 games, but it is the best 3 games you could have asked for.
Without a doubt. I mean, the only blemish on his record is a tipped pass that was right in the hands of Kenneth Gainwell.
And I don't even blame him.
For
Again,
an
we should have a
interception.
separate stat because that shouldn't even count.
Exactly. So right now, if you look at it, he has thrown a clean season. And all of the balls that he is throwing, Lou, he's not even giving the defensive backs a chance to make an interception. Yes.
Yeah, ball placement and accuracy might be the 2 most impressive parts of his game so far.
Even when he started 1 for 5 against Washington, the passes that he was throwing that got broken up, he put them in a position for the wide receiver to make a play. But I mean, Washington had exceptional coverage in the first part of that game. And throughout that game, they were able to make some plays on the ball, but they weren't in a position where it's behind them, where the cornerback can just peel off and make a play. They weren't putting him high like Carson Wentz does. His accuracy, his placement, his timing, his trust, his rhythm. I think his rhythm as a passer right now, just getting into the groove and finding that rhythm, even after starting slow. You saw it after an 0-5 start in Detroit and a 1-5 start in Washington.
Short-term memory.
Able to, he's got the goldfish memory. He flips a switch onto the next drive, and you've seen the results that have come out of that.
Big time. It's not just Jalen Hurts, though. This entire roster is firing on all cylinders to get to their first 3-0 start since 2016. We'll get into more stock ups coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks Daily Fantasy. We love how easy it is to play with Daily Fantasy on Prize Picks. How does it work? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they're going to score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing with anybody. It's just you versus the projection. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you watch as well. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. They have safe and fast withdrawals too. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks is going to give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks is going to give you $50. Don't forget, enter the promo code LOCKEDON at Prize Picks to deposit to get an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Eagles fans, this is Louie DiBiase and Gino Camilleri on Locked On Eagles. Thank you so much for making LOE your first listen each and every day. It's stock up, stock down, and Gino's stock up, stock down is always way more fun to do after a big win. I mean, I want to name pretty much off the entire roster. There are so many guys that dominated against Washington.
This is the type of season that all the 900 episodes we've done, Lou, this is what we've been waiting for.
Yep.
The success, the continued evolution in multiple players. It's not just Jalen Hurts. It's the development across the board. It's the ability for Jonathan Gannon and Nick Sirianni to continue to hone in on their personnel and play to their strengths and advantages. And it's just all of those areas we had question marks about. We're not sitting back after Sundays or Mondays and saying, why are we still seeing the same things outside of special teams? But on offense and defense, everything is straightforward. They're dominating in multiple different facets.
The last shoe to drop was the 4-man rush, Gino, and they had 9 sacks on Carson Wentz on Sunday.
Simply because they imposed their will. They were in that meeting room all week long, and you knew the message was simple. Get home to Carson Wentz early and often and break him early. And that's exactly what they did. And was it with the blitz? On occasion. Was it with sending guys from multiple different looks? On occasion. But what was the consistent factor? It was 4 guys, sometimes 5 guys down on the line with their hand in the dirt, winning one-on-one matchups, or like Fletcher Cox, taking on combo blocks and just absolutely manhandling the offensive line of the Washington Commanders. And if you watched the Monday Night Football game last night with Evan Neal starting at right tackle for the New York Giants, man, this team should be licking their chops to see Washington's line one more time, the Giants line twice this year, just because they are simply that much better. And are they not the best that they have been in arguably all of their careers? Fletcher Cox is playing at a career high level right now. Brandon Graham looks like he's 23 years old.
Incredible that he's in his mid
playing.
30s coming off a torn Achilles and he didn't skip a beat.
Hassan Reddick, whose usage has been hit or miss in the first 2 weeks, they finally said, just put your hand in the ground and go get the quarterback. That's exactly what he did. Josh Sweat continues to show that he is one of the most unbelievably athletic edges, with his ability to corner and bend off of the edge and just literally almost get parallel to the ground on some of his rushes. And then Jordan Davis, like, I can't wait for him to get his first sack. He was right there. They're just going to continue to get better and better and better. And now they have an identity. Rush with 4, cover in the back. We're going to win games that way. And they've allowed 7 points outside of the garbage time points to Carson Wentz. I mean, it's a recipe that's been working.
At one point, man, that could not have went worse for Wentz. Hurts looks like an MVP. And at one point, the Eagles had 323 passing yards when Wentz had -1. So the 4-man rush completely took over. And I got to give a shout out to Jordan Davis, who kind of, fell under the radar in that game because he didn't get in the sack column. He should have. But, he had 4 pressures on 14 pass rush snaps. PFF gave him an elite pass rush grade. He also had that first pass deflection of the game on 2nd down. So I thought the rookie looked really good. And that's how he's going to stay on the field, is by rushing the passer. But it wasn't just those guys on defense, the unsung heroes, maybe of the entire season so far. And for one guy in particular for the last few years. How about linebacker TJ Edwards and slot cornerback Avonte Maddox? Those two looked incredible against Washington. TJ Edwards, by the way, this year, he's the 2nd highest graded linebacker of the entire season, according to Pro Football Focus. He had 10 tackles on the day, 2 for a loss, 2 quarterback hits, and a sack. I mean, the way he has evolved his game over the years, he was always reliable with run fits and on special teams, but the way he is getting from sideline to sideline now, the IQ, the quarterbacks on both sides of the ball, it really shows you what work ethic can do in the NFL. Jalen Hurts and TJ Edwards, but Avonte Maddox too. Darius Slay and James Bradbury, they're getting their flowers because they're erasing guys like Terry McLaurin and Justin Jefferson. They're completely dominating, but so is Maddox. Low key right now, the 10th highest graded PFF corner. And that play on 4th and goal, I've watched it like 8 times, 10 times over the last few days, where on 4th and goal, he gets into the A-gap and sticks Logan Thomas, who's got 60-plus pounds on the kid, and forces a turnover. With that interception he had last week too, Maddox in the slot the last 2 years, he's found his home for the long term.
Could Avonte Maddox contract be the most team-friendly deal?
It's going to look like it already looks like a complete bargain.
I think the whole NFL.
Maybe the best slot corner in the NFL. Or
that's
not number 1, top 3.
That's what I'm saying. You look at what he is getting paid versus his value in production to any NFL roster at this current point in time. Man, the Eagles cashed in at the perfect time for Avonte Maddox, and rightfully so. The second they drafted him, Lou, he always felt like a fit, because when he came here, the first impressions you got of him, even when he wasn't making plays in coverage, was he's physical. Even for a smaller guy, he's willing to come downhill. And the play that encapsulates who he is coming down and stuffing in an interior gap, attacking the back hip, wrapping up, rolling away, and pushing them back to the side. We were working this drill in my high school coaching team the other day, and I said, I literally showed all my kids this the next day, because I said, this is what it should look like, guys.
The Maddox drill, you should call it now.
He has 60 less pounds on this guy, but velocity, physicality, and will, that'll just overtake anything. And the rate that Avonte Maddox is playing at, he is just seeing the field a step quicker than everybody else. And so is TJ Edwards, man, because I believe with him, it was easy for him to come in and adapt to the run. And now he knows that he doesn't have to think against the run, so he can step back and play coverage better. And you're just seeing him see the whole field. He's able to get out sideline to sideline. And when is the last time this guy missed a tackle? It's like him missing tackles and Lane Johnson giving up sacks are two things that just do not happen with this Philadelphia.
He's probably going to get a contract extension next year. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do because Kazir White looks really good, but you also have Nakobe Dean waiting in the wings. It's a great problem to have, and the Eagles normally don't have that at linebacker, Gino, so certainly stock up to TJ Edwards, Avonte Maddox, and how about stock up overall to the offense not turning over the football? We've laid out many things this offense is doing right with explosive deep plays, 3rd and 4th down efficiency, protection with the run and the pass, Hurts, the weapons, but they're not turning the football over either, and that's huge.
And every drive with a kick, whether it's an extra point, whether it's a field goal, or whether it's a punt, it's way better than the alternative to turning the ball over on a fumble or an interception. And the only time that they did that was the interception to Kenneth Gainwell, which I had mentioned earlier, which set them back in their own defensive territory in the red zone, and Avonte Maddox steps up and makes a play. That'll get you out of a jam one time. But when you're like the past Eagles, who they had Carson Wentz, they had rookie Jalen Hurts, who were susceptible to turning the ball over, and you saw the precarious positions it put them in. Jalen Hurts, above everything else, is doing the most important job in football, taking care of the rock. Ball security is job security. They are not turning this thing over. Even when they get in the open field, the ball carriers are taking advantage of making sure they hold on to it. A.J. Brown has the strongest mitts in the world. Dallas Goedert doesn't drop balls. He doesn't let the ball go. DeVonta Smith, he might be 175 pounds, but man, he'll hold on to that ball with the force of a silverback
Miles Sanders'
gorilla,
ball
brother.
protection looks really good this year so far.
Yeah, he's I believe Miles is a top 5 most efficient runner according to Pro Football Outsiders. They are just continuing to have players that have had problems in the past taking care of the ball, continue to take care of the ball, which goes to the development. It goes to the trust. Those are things that you have to just continue to build. Miles Sanders always wasn't the most sure-handed player. Jalen Hurts made some sketchy passes his first 2 years. But what have they done? They've gotten better. And I think that goes to the understanding of knowing how important they are to this team. Because if they hold themselves to a higher standard where they take care of the rock, everybody else has to take care of the football because you're not better than the quarterback. Quarterback's number one.
Mm-hmm. The ball security has been there, Gino, but the explosive plays, some offenses, like it's all or nothing. They're going to go for it, but sometimes they turn the football over. The Eagles are taking care of the football, but the explosive plays are there more than any offense in football right now. And a lot of that has to do with the step Jalen Hurts took, but the step he's taken has been because of these wide receivers. It's ironic that Jeremy Maclin, of all people, yesterday tweeted out that the Eagles have the best weapons in the NFL right now. I think this group is better than that 2010 cast he was a part of. I think it's the best wide receiver duo and overall group that they've ever had. And I don't think that's being a prisoner of the moment. When you look at the collective talent of DeVonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, and Miles Sanders with Gainwell and Scott as well, they have totally dominated. And it's in every area. That's the thing. Like you look at Smith and Brown specifically. Gino, they had 5 of the 7 3rd and 4th down conversions the Eagles were a part of on Sunday. So they're moving the chains. They're dominating in yards after the catch. You saw contested plays. They both looked like Randy Moss out there. DeVonta Smith had 2 Moss plays. Brown had 1 on his own. They're both scoring red zone touchdowns down the field. Each had multiple catches of 40-plus yards over the first 3 weeks. I mean, DeVonta Smith himself has 15 catches for 250 yards and a touchdown the last 2 weeks. And then, of course, Dallas Goedert, by the way, he has the 6th highest yards after the catch above expectation this year in the NFL. I mean, they are, like I said, it's the 2010 offense, but they're all 24, 25. This isn't going to fade out.
And you probably don't have Chip Kelly waiting in the wings to come in
to
and
sabotage everything.
Blow up your roster. Yeah, that's another facet.
That's true, because some of those guys back, Djax, Maclin, and Shady, they were young, but Chip didn't want talent on his team because he wanted to get credit.
Exactly. Yeah. And this go around, Howie Roseman is capitalizing on bringing in talent in multiple different ways. And I think that's a great way to talk about these weapons. How were they acquired? Well, DeVonta Smith, you moved up in the draft to get him. Dallas Goedert, you took ahead of the Dallas Cowboys that you were able to bring him in here, jump them a few spots. You trade for A.J. Brown. You get Miles Sanders in the 2nd round. You get Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. Versatility. you got them in a multiple different ways. Well,
and then you
on
find
offense,
Quez Watkins in the 6th round, Gino, who, by the way, didn't have a catch against Washington, but his 2 pass interference calls he drew, they combined for 40 yards.
That's another 20 plus average yards per attempt there at Quez Watkins. And
that's right.
The point of acquiring them through different ways and them being versatile in how they acquired them, it's a very good mirror of how they play on the football field. Because you look at DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown, who were able to make these 40-plus yard Randy Moss-esque plays downfield, and then all of a sudden DeVonta Smith is catching this tunnel screen 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Everybody's blocking for him, and he's great in open space, and he gets another big gain off of that. And you look at the tight end screen to Dallas Goedert, might be the best play in the playbook over the last 3 seasons, and he's still averaging 14, 15 yards of reception. A.J. Brown, you get him in the ball underneath. It seems like every time A.J. Brown gets the ball, even if he is contested, he's going to pick up 3 to 4 additional yards after contact. And Quez Watkins, he might be the most underrated weapon in the arsenal. It's like a pitcher who just throws a pitch maybe 1 or 2 times a game, and you never see it coming. And when it does get to you, you're like, oh, crap, I got to either swing at this thing or I'm going to take a looking strike, and that's what it is. We're either going to allow him to complete the deep ball or we're going to take a pass interference call, which is exactly what happened. And, man, I don't see a team in the National Football League that has enough in terms of defensive backfield depth that can take these guys out of a game. And even if you take one out of a game, all right, DeVonta Smith, you're now covered by an outside linebacker, and we're going to take advantage of that. And they did exactly that last week.
And if you try to take all those guys out, they have the number 1 elite rushing offense in all football behind the best offensive line and a top 3 rushing quarterback in Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell and Boston
This feels
Scott.
good. This feels good.
It feels
Lou.
amazing.
I enjoy this.
Yeah, this is great. Gino, before we wrap up the show, though, we should get to some stock downs. There's not a lot to get into. I guess one, I would say, and this is just a matter of circumstance, but stock down just to Nakobe Dean, because as I mentioned earlier, it's not even because Dean's not even giving an opportunity to play on the field because of how good TJ Edwards and Kazir White's been. I'm not sure what they're going to do this offseason, but I'm fascinated to see how this is going to go. Dean, I don't know where his role in the field is going to be this year with how good Edwards and White look.
This, honestly, to me, was the best case scenario when you drafted Nakobe Dean, because one, it let any injury worries kind of take themselves. You're not putting him in there for 50, 60 snaps. And two, it means you did a good job addressing this position prior to the NFL draft, which they did exactly that. They trusted TJ Edwards. They go out and grab Kazir White. Well, you took care of it. And at the same time, you were able to add on to Nakobe Dean. It's like the defensive line. Like, oh yeah, we just have the luxury of drafting Jordan Davis to back up 2 potential all-pros and Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and the next up in Milton Williams. And it's just that luxury that you can have. And with Nakobe, he's still getting snaps. He's one of the better special teamers that they have. And I think him not seeing the field in year 1 in bulk wouldn't be the worst thing. I think by the end of the year, you'll see him deployed more in sub packages. They'll continue to work him in kind of like he did when he talked about his freshman year at Georgia, where he found one role, he did that really well, and then he was able to work his way onto the field. But right now, with the skill level of your linebackers, this is at no fault of Nakobe Dean. I mean, he's
I don't think we would have
athletic,
predicted
he's
this,
physical.
man.
No,
when they took him in the 3rd round, I thought Nakobe Dean was going to be your every down linebacker. And I saw Honest NFL talk about this yesterday, that maybe, he was asked about who do they pay at linebacker next year. And he said probably TJ Edwards and maybe Kazir White, prices himself out, and Nakobe Dean on a 3-year rookie contract comes in with Edwards. But regardless, of all these scenarios, I think the Eagles are going to be okay at linebacker long-term. And for the first time in a long time, we get to hear that. So that feels really good. So Nakobe Dean hasn't done anything wrong. It's just a matter of circumstance with how good the 2 starters are in front of him. His path to playing time is dwindling for sure, but that's not a bad thing. Gino, how about stock down to the special teams unit and overall Britton Covey? And it's not, he just the Washington did everything wrong on Sunday except for hit that kid hard. He took a beating in DC, and the punt return continues to be not good. They had to throw DeVonta Smith back there for a rep. Kickoff, the field position, this offense is number one in the NFL in spite of it. But, you've been the biggest proponent of this, that, special teams can make it even easier for this football team. And they're not doing that.
If you look at the years where they were elite on special teams in the early 2010s, right? They took a couple teams that were probably 4-win teams at best. And because their special teams was so good, it flipped them to winning 7 games. You saw, and I always go back to that New England Patriots game when nobody in the world gave the Eagles a chance back in 2014, and they're taking on the Patriots, and you're saying, how are they going to win this game? Was that 2015?
2015. Yeah,
2015. Yeah. So how did they win that game? Because Darren Sproles turned it on. He returned a punt for a touchdown. That flips the switch. That gives you better field position. It demoralizes the special teams and the entirety of the other team. And it also allows your offense to not have to produce at a nearly perfect rate every time that they are out there, getting these 11, 12, 13, 14 play drives. Britton Covey hasn't looked great, but man, if you look at the all-22 view and see how open every single person is for Washington, there was one clip that on the TV view where you look at it and Covey has a sea of red coming at him.
Yeah, eating a
Nobody
line,
is blocking for him. That's at the fault of your coordinator. And I know you tweeted out the other day that Jordan Davis made a mistake lining up over the long snapper. You should never be in that position.
Coaches should be telling you that rule went in place like 4 years ago.
100%. That's on the coordinator. I will not quit on the Mike Clay has not deserved to keep his job trained because
the campaign continues.
It's going to continue. I mean, we were at the throat of Jonathan Gannon saying he better turn it around or things are not going to look great. Well, he has answered in a spectacular fashion. What has this special teams given you in nearly 20 plus games under Mike Clay?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Negative field position, a bad return unit. Aaron Sipos might be the worst punter in the entire NFL. Outside of Jake Elliott, man, like Jake Elliott should win an award for just being able to keep his sanity for how bad this special teams unit is. But if this is the biggest complaint, Lou,
it's a good thing, man.
Offense working as well as it is, with the defense working as well as it is, I will lower my blood pressure. I will remain calm.
If the special teams coordinator is public enemy number 1 on your team, I think we're doing something right for sure.
Yes, sir.
Because the Eagles are 3-0. They're on top of the NFL right now. They got Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-1 coming up this Sunday. Gino and I will take a first look
be pretty good,
at
Lou.
that matchup. Trevor Lawrence looks really good. That's what Doug does with quarterbacks. We'll follow up on that matchup tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles on all platforms and on YouTube as well. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen today and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson. They give you the expert NFL analysis, in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. Locked On Eagles, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.